and this goes back to the moral issue, is using AI to generate any kind of content, is it a form of, let's just call it lying?
I don't think any type of content, because it's almost like saying, should a Christian, is it okay for a Christian to use a car? It's a thing that in itself is neutral. Now there's a mind behind it to be able to operate it. So how it's used, much like a weapon, like a gun, the thing is just a thing. It's how you're using it.
It's just a tool,
right? This is a tool. And this is why I'm kind of like, I've been hedging on it so much throughout this conversation, because I haven't landed so definitively on one. And I don't think it calls to be, it's like the internet. Should Christians or the church use the internet? Just like Ryan said regarding this right now, it's a tool to use, but with caution. I mean, it actually requires the Christian use discernment. How are you using anything in your life? If this is one of the benefits of living where God has us now in this day and age among the borders that he has us, then okay, then use whatever is here for us to live responsibly in a way that's ethically driven and filtered through a biblical worldview. Well, you have freedom in Christ, If you're using it for evil or for sinful reasons, then that's a problem. But that can go with anything.
Yeah, I think if ChatGTP, is that what it is?
ChatGPT.
GPT. Okay. If ChatGPT, if you have it write something and then you propagate that as if it came from you, then yeah, that's immoral.
And that's something right there, because they never do. A pastor's not going to say, by the way, this is by ChatGPT.
Well, and this is one of the things there.
Even if someone writes an email, I would put a little caveat at the bottom saying, hey, I just want you to know I auto-generated this.
Well, and that's what some of these tech companies, too. What they're doing is you put in your sermon, and they can generate a devotional. It can generate a blog post.
I have a perfect example. I'm sorry.
No, please.
This is a little bit of a confession.
Yes.
A little bit. So
we're going to find out all of his sermons from ChatGPT. Actually, they're not, because they'd be really polished.
They'd be more coherent. And
I should not say this on our podcast. I'm going to get in trouble for this.
Let's hear it.
So every new person that comes to our church, they get a letter from me thanking them. Now, I type it, but it's sent to one of those services where they have handwriting robots. Have you seen these things?
Of course.
There's these machines that will take the data and so it's actually an ink. It's a machine. It
looks like a handwritten letter.
Yeah. So I type it and then I send it to them, and then that company automatically sends it. So
I guess it's a form of AI, wouldn't it be?
This just dawned on me. This is kind of a confession.
This is confession.
So a gal at our church found out that's what I did. She got the letter and she thought, oh, he took the time to write a handwritten letter to me and my husband and my kids, And then she found out that I used that service. And she's like, she literally told me, it was a joke, but she literally told me, she's like, as soon as I found out that you didn't handwrite it, I literally took it off my fridge and threw it away.
As she should.
Yeah. Well, but if you think about it, it's because it made it feel impersonal. Yeah. The reason she put it on her fridge is because the handwriting makes it feel personal. Mm-hmm. So when you write an email, but you don't say I as an experiment, it'd be interesting to have ChatGPT type an email for you. And then at the bottom say, this was auto-generated by ChatGPT, and see if people take it in a good way. And I bet, my gut tells me, people would be offended, and they would take it personally, and that you were being disingenuous.
That's really interesting, because that's a great example.
I'm confessing, but I think it's a legitimate example.
That's actually because what happened was her reaction was it was the personal side of it. Once that was gone, it was nothing. Isn't that the same thing? If you take out the personal side of sermon work and prep and all this stuff, you take that out, it is something artificial. It's like, what's the authority of this? Am I submitting it because AI says it, or I know my pastor who is a man of God and struggling and laboring in the text, and I can trust it. That's a really good example.
So
for now on, you're going to be handwriting every letter of our church, or what are you going to do?
I think I just outed myself. I'm going to get in trouble for this one.
How is your penmanship there, Pastor?
Well, it is horrible.
We thought it was beautiful, but it's not.
Yeah. The font I use is actually called Reliable Ryan, so it makes me feel better. Like it's got my name, but
the whole thing is deceitful. Even the name of the font.
But to your point,
oh, man.
It is true. Whatever you put your name on, people expect it to come from you, whether it be a blog, a devotional. Yep. So if those are being generated by AI, even though you originally gave it in a sermon, if they're now being generated, and this is the big push from technology, Christian tech companies.
Okay, listen. and this is going somewhere else, but now I'm finally starting to make some connections from a professor.
I see light bulbs going off.
Yes.
From a New Testament perspective, this actually is related to the debate of pseudepigrapha, because there are writings and pseudonymous writings that were written in the name of an apostle that did not write that writing, but the content was supposedly that would jive with the apostle. And yet those were rejected. They're not looked at as canonical because it wasn't written personally by an apostle, even if the content was okay.
And there's reasons it should be rejected.
In a sense, right now, that's kind of if you generate something, automatically generate that didn't come from you, but you put your name on it, it is deceit. In the same way that pseudepigraphal writings are deceitful.
So we should just end it right now. AI in the church, pseudepigrapha. Or what what is it called? Pseudo.
Chat
Hey, I'm the
GPT. You
pastor,
can't even say
all
that.
right?
yet.
GTP,
Right?
Pseudo something or other.
So chat D1,
We've
3,
lost our
R2D2,
audience already.
pseudepiga who? Yeah.
Well, actually, what is pseudepigrapha?
Pseudepigrapha means false writings. Pseudo false pigrapha comes from the right for writings. Grapha, I write. Anyways, put together false writings, and these are books like the Gospel according to Thomas, the Acts of Peter. There's so many of them off the top of my head because I didn't plan on talking about this, but I did present out a paper and I did write a chapter that's coming out in a book, Pseudepigraphy in the New Testament, and there are some that are for it, that these writings are okay. But at the end of the day, and this was my argument for the Johannine writings, because there's a big dispute if John the Apostle wrote the Gospel of John, the 3 letters of John, and I say he did. Others are going to say no. And my ultimate point was, from an ecclesiastical standpoint, meaning from a church standpoint, why should anybody submit to its writings if it doesn't carry apostolic divine authority? The counter-argument was, well, it jives with John's theology. It's still, the content is okay, and they put it in his name, or someone said it was in his name, so it would have more of a wide circulation. But at the end of the day, it doesn't give you a reason of why you would even trust it.
But as Paul says in Timothy, that we submit to the Scriptures, that the Scriptures are good for reproof, correction, for teaching in righteousness, so that the man of God may be adequate and equipped. Yeah. The reason why that matters is because it's theopneustos. It's because it's God-breathed.
Yeah.
So the author, the original author, is what gives it authority.
That's right. Doesn't this go back to something, and you even commented on an article you just did on infant baptism as well, and I've done some work in this as well, where the text itself is not the mind. The texts are linguistic symbols to represent thinking. It represents the thoughts of a human mind. That's ultimately why something is personal. Like, I'm not going to throw something off the refrigerator if it comes from Ryan, if it was written in his handwriting, if it actually was written in his handwriting, right? And I'm going to throw it away if it's not, like the example he gave, because it's just, these are linguistic symbols. But if the thought behind it was actually representing his thoughts, then I will keep it, because that's what it comes down to. It's not the linguistic symbols. It's not the text as its own separate entity. It has to represent the mind that produced it. And AI produces it on its own. Yeah. It doesn't have the human mind behind it that is being portrayed when I present that sermon that I didn't write.